Good evening, ladies and gentlemen in St. Lucia and in the diaspora. Tonight, I want to say quite categorically that the title of my program is simply to believe in constructive dialogue and mutual respect for each other. This is something that many of us seem to have not inculcated in our children, who at a very tender age can insult those older than themselves. Therefore, a society with no respect for each other is morally being thrown into the dustbin of history. However, before I get into the nitty-gritty of my program tonight, let us say a prayer to the One Most High. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. O Father in heaven, we put our faith and trust in you because you truly cared about the future of St. Lucia, and therefore you chose to send us Philip Joseph Pierre to help us once again to come out of the dark and into the light. Therefore we thank you, Lord, for all you have done for this small island of ours. In 2 years and 8 months, much have been done, and respect for St. Lucia is coming back to the fore on all levels, more so with our foreign friends and neighbors. We thank you immensely because you believe in Philip, and we believe in you because you are without a doubt the Prince of Peace, the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. Amen. Tonight I quote from the Bible, Luke 10, verses 21 to 28. At that time Jesus was filled with joy by the Holy Spirit and said, Father, Lord of heaven and earth, I thank you because you have shown to the unlearned what you have hidden from the wise and learned. Yes, Father, this was how you were pleased to have it happen. My Father has given me all things. No one knows who the Son is except the Father, and no one knows who the Father is except the Son, and those to whom the Son chooses to reveal himself. Then Jesus turned to the disciples and said to them privately, how fortunate you are to see the things you see. I tell you that many prophets and kings wanted to see what you see, but they could not, and to hear what you hear, but they did not. A teacher of the law came up and tried to trap Jesus. Teacher, he asked, what must I do to receive eternal life? Jesus answered him, what do the scriptures say? How do you interpret them? The man answered, love the Lord your God with all your heart, and with all your soul, and with all your strength, and with all your mind, and love your neighbor as yourself. You are right, Jesus replied. Do this, and you will live. The word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. Oh, tonight, before I begin in earnest, I want to say something that I have observed over the years in assessing Philip Joseph Pierre, and that is, he believes sincerely that the people have a right to life and to freedom and to pursue a happy life. His was modest, like many of us, but we enjoyed it. Therefore, Philip believes that when things are taken away, you become a non-person. That is why I say to Alan, in all sincerity, to try and give us back our $7.3 million because of COVID and vaccines. This can do so much for the many poor people in our nation that don't have a happy life. But this can bring back some life into each and every one of them. Philip, in my view, sincerely believes in a socialist core value, which is a strong country together with democracy and civilization. Therefore, from the 21st of July 2021, Philip have brought to this country harmony, freedom, as people were not seen as mendicants, jackasses, or barking dogs. He also brought equality, justice, patriotism, respect, honesty, and friendliness. Oh yes, to many it may sound like a joke, because they refuse to believe as their leader seems to cast a shadow over their eyes. Therefore, they're too blind to see. But I can tell you this, brothers and sisters, that over the last few years we have become rich and strong in every way because, without a doubt, Where there is true democracy, there's freedom and equality. Oh, tonight I want to say to those attending jazz to enjoy it with all your heart, especially those who have come to the festival from overseas, because I'm sure many of you must have hated the thought that this was somewhat unavailable under the last government of Alan Chesney. This was part and parcel of our culture, which was suddenly wiped out by a man who said that he was a product of Canada. So in truth and in fact, he was not at all worried about destroying all that was good about the country's culture. Life, brothers and sisters in St. Lucia and in the diaspora, as we know it, is beginning to return to the country, and hearts are much warmer as the people are more excited to have a government and Prime Minister who, although anxious to see growth in the country, not only for some, but for all. He is also conscious that people have to enjoy themselves, and the culture of jazz that have been developed over the years must continue. Therefore, he in his wisdom, have literally brought jazz back to life in St. Lucia. Oh, it has been a joyous occasion for all, and even the young are enjoying themselves with great enthusiasm. I just pray and hope, as I've heard so far, that violence does not raise its ugly head, although some would like to see that happening because their minds are in the gutter, like some of them who live in the United States but are not interested in the Labour Party and country doing well. As the figures are presently showing, that many in the country are without a doubt in a relaxed mood. We hope that will continue, which will allow the country to breathe again. Well done, Philip, and your government, for the effort you have put in to bringing jazz back to the people and the country. The country is simply on a high, and only the blind will fail to see. I am sure that as night follows day, the same United Records of the Poor supporters will be the first to rush to attend these jazz sessions. And not only that, will also be one of the first looking for their ticket to be there, free, in fact. There is no doubt in my mind that the economy had stalled under the last government because it was clear to see that there was zero growth, in some cases, minus growth. But now employment is beginning to grow, and jobs will be even more to the fore as infrastructural works begin on numerous projects. Prime Minister, I insist that you take a bow for the great work you have accomplished. No doubt you had ministers like Minister Gerard, Alva Baptiste, for the hard work they have been doing overseas to encourage countries to what St. Lucia has to offer. We must also be thankful to Minister of Infrastructure, Stephenson King, for the excellent work he's doing, more so on the roads and elsewhere. I simply don't hear the records of the poor complaining because all they do now is to abuse the roads. I must also ask the Minister of Agriculture and Fisheries to take a bow when there are so many problems to deal with, more so the weather, predial larceny, the fishers' vending facilities. I believe sincerely that anyone found stealing the livelihood of a farmer who has taken time and money to produce, and when the time comes to harvest, it is stolen. That person, if found, must go to prison for life. I believe sincerely that our laws should now change, and a special force in agriculture should now be on board. Irrigation and the many problems that were left behind by the last government because they believed in importing foodstuffs to please their friends overseas, as alleged. Question, was there a cut somewhere for them? Again, as was alleged. Just asking. Oh, we thank you, Lord, for giving us a new government under the leadership of Philip Joseph Pierre. The last government had serious debt issues. There is no doubt that foreign investors saw the last government as a joke and were simply not interested in what they would have liked from them. The country is back on course to at least where it was in 2016. Investors have faith and confidence in the country, and are prepared to invest, as we are seeing that other Caribbean countries are eager to invest in our lottery, would you believe it? However, I want to point out, as I mentioned before, that I sincerely believe in mutual respect. Why? Because we are a democracy, and therefore there are some on both sides of the political divide that seem to want to be jackasses all their lives, as Alan once called them. Maybe a dunce, like one called Edward, who tends to spout out verbal diarrhea every time he opens his mouth, but think he is clever. Yes, in his case, the truth is what he wants it to be. I said to Liberites, let the records of the poor indulge in their type of profanity, but you as supporters of Philip J. Pierre must never let yourself drop to their level. In life, many decide to drift to the devil because evil is part and parcel of their life. We who support what is morally right and just must never sink to their level. In studying and teaching Julius Caesar in English literature in England, there is something that Mark Antony said that was very profound when he saw the body of Caesar lying with so many stab wounds. And he was dead, obviously. And he immediately said that the evil that men do live after them. The good is often interred with their bones. So let it be with Caesar. This, to me, was very profound. And it has shown itself on several occasions in the life I have led. Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, who believe in goodness and purity of heart, we have to come to the realization that there is evil lurking all around us, even in family. And some you think are friends. Trust no one until they have proven themselves to be worth your attention. Watch their words. And that I do as one who lectures in social psychology. I do my best to look before I leap, and have come to the realization something worth remembering, and that is, all that glitters is not gold. What I find here in this country of ours, and many of us seem to forget where we come from. And because things have turned out well for us, we begin to look down on others, just as some whites are still, and now Chinese are doing to black people still, looking down on them, not because of intelligence, but because of skin texture. This is nonsense. But in St. Lucia, it is also the little piece of academic papers that some have, and they cannot even put it into practice the majority of the time. They were good at passing exams, but totally useless in applying that knowledge. I put all this forward because I listened a little to a radio program which was being produced by Champagne, a supporter of the UWP, and Alan. And to be honest, I was simply and quite categorically upset by written comments that were being put out by some which I did not approve of. I basically cannot and don't support anyone insulting individuals because of the job they do or did. In Champagne's case, in my view, his job at the airport was one that was needed and allowed him to meet all sorts of travelers. And therefore it was without a doubt a respectful job and a commanding one at that. He did his job with passion, and he was very excellent at what he did because travelers were relaxed to have him as their luggage man, being taken to their cars, etc. Which the same cannot be said for a lot of working people in this country. The character was always well dressed and polite because during those years I traveled regularly, nearly every 6 to 8 weeks, and he was the one of the individuals I trusted and talked to on my return because of the exceptional service he gave to his clients. I've always been told that in life, it is not what you do, as long as a job you do is morally sound and you do it to the best of your ability. However, whatever you do, try to be the best. And he was without a doubt one of the best. He took pride in his work. For that I must thank you immensely, Champagne, for the way you treated me then and even now. I do have respect for you. I could say that with a tear in my eyes. Your politics is your right, just as mine is. Yet we have met and have very seldom spoken about politics. Politically, we are on opposite ends, but you have always treated me with courtesy, and I hope I have done likewise towards you. Unlike an idiot who has gone overboard in terms of his politics and seems unable to disprove what I say in terms of my program, yet he's obsessed and interested in my age, etc. Maybe, just maybe, he just cannot believe in my wisdom and knowledge because he would like to give the impression that he is so knowledgeable. But whenever he sees me, he realizes that educationally, I can buy him and sell him. In all aspects of life, is without a doubt a minion. But I wouldn't say that to him because he knows it himself. He was here working with a hardware store, yet word had it that he was useless until he went overseas. Who paid for this his studies? And therefore, whose backside he has to kiss for that? Pardon the pun. I leave this for another story and another time. This is the same individual who made the statement that he can find out something from the government. He would simply make up a statement if he couldn't find it and see if anyone bites. Can that be honesty? This is the level that this individual stoops to. And therefore, when Alan talks about the 43% mendicants, the jackasses and the barking dogs that bray, then he was talking about people like that who he mixes with and are aware of their mentality, which has no morals and values. Now we know, but once again to say to these lost souls, thanks for listening, especially to Moving Forward, and those who listen to Champagne who are Laborites. And I can assure you that if it is not moving forward, it will never go backwards. Because you are listening, my friend. And I appreciate your interest because I now know that both sides of the fence are listening. It's at this juncture. I'll take my first break and I'll be back with you. Welcome back to Moving Forward. This is, to me, excellent as far as I am concerned. Now I need to get into some of the nitty-gritty on some of the issues that we need to speak about. On the 7th of April, once again, in the sitting of the House, the leader of the opposition, once again, was not sitting in his place. And therefore, I have come to the conclusion that this man is simply not interested in solution politics. We must never forget what he did when the House first sat in 2021. After winning the elections, that is Labour, he decided that he needed a holiday, as he had not had one. Yet he was seldom in the country and was only here at one time because of COVID-19. It seems as if at this juncture, he just don't want to be around because so much is happening that he feels he cannot face the question that will be put to him. Why can Labour, a unity government, can do so much and yet you did nothing in 5 years? Well, the answer is simple. One ex-leader is literally cornered with no place to hide. I remember a program in the United Kingdom called No Hiding Place. This is it now for him. However, at present, the country is being led by a qualified leader. And not only that, but one who is qualified in accountancy. More so, he is a humble individual, a man of the people, all the people, whether red, yellow, blue, or green. This does not matter He only thinks of St. Lucians. What is so obvious is that the attack by the opposition is so lackluster. It makes one wonder whether these are the same people who made us think that they were winning the last election hands down, when in truth and in fact they were hoping that the useless piece of psychology would work. I want to remind St. Lucians of what was said by the now deputy leader of the opposition, that on their motorcade, and I said it last week, what one saw was a sea of yellow as far as the eye can see, and even chuckled as if it was a sight to behold, and that they would wipe the opposition into oblivion. More so, that they had 6 musical bands accompanying that sea of yellow. It is really amazing that what we witnessed was karma itself. This Prime Minister believes in putting the people first. That is Philip, and has instilled this, not only with his ministers, but with those who support the party, and even the opposition. I believe that it is the right way to think, because of the people are prospering, then a country prospers. Regardless whether it is Labour Unity or UWP, we are the people, ladies and gentlemen. I want to say to this government, in all sincerity, that you have warmed the cockles of the hearts of the older generation of the country, because you have seen their plight and realized how hard they had worked to make St. Lucia what it is today. It could have been better if the last government had not tried to play tricks with the government's purse and had thought of the country as a whole, and not just family, friends, and foreigners, more so the Chinese ones. Look at their behavior in Nigeria, where a food store owned by Chinese had been closed down because of the attitude of not allowing Nigerians to come into the establishment to purchase what they wanted. It almost reminded me of apartheid. We must never forget that a Chinese establishment owner in this country literally spat on one of their St. Lucian workers. Some of you may have forgotten that, but that is fact, not fiction. I can say without fear or favor that no Taiwanese would do such a thing. But these are the individuals the last government wanted to bring here in droves. In my view, to sell our country to Chinese foreigners. That can never be visualized by anyone in this country. Questions are now being asked, even in Jamaica, as to whether China now owns Jamaica. Well, I tell them this in terms of St. Lucia. A question such as this would never accrue here, not with Philip J. Pierre as the Prime Minister. Back to what is now in place for our older folks, by a government that is putting people first, and one who cares about its people. The government is now saying quite categorically that from the 1st of August, 2024, that the minimum pension payments for government pensioners will increase. This will take into consideration the government pensioners will collect a minimum of $725 every month. Not only that, but the NIC will increase its minimum pension payments to $500, its minimum, remember, a month. What we will see is that more than 2,400 pensioners will benefit from the payment increases. Therefore, a bright new dawn will open up for all pensioners. And without a doubt, this will bring joy to all the older ones. Their hearts on their native soil will flourish. This is in effect from the 1st of August 2024. Government has put things in place for the Cricket World Cup also, which is to come. And this is why we saw a sitting of the House of Assembly on Tuesday, the 7th of May 2024. The government will be asking the House to give the authority to raise also $64.1 million in bonds. There is already $477 million already in the system which was raised by the last government and governments before. It is important that the public understands that. Why this is so? Because there are some who are basically deceitful in saying that the government is coming to Parliament to look for bonds of $477 million. That is already in the system. It is therefore important to reiterate that the government is coming to the House to raise $64.1 million in bonds. And these are new bonds. This is the level that the opposition have come to be, because they continue to spread alarm and despondency, not realizing that it does not work anymore, because there is a saying that you can fool some of the people some of the time, but not all of the time. No wonder the leader of the opposition, who was not in the House again, as he had asked once again to be excused, called some of those individuals mendicants, jackasses, and barking dogs, because that's the way they think. Ladies and gentlemen, over the last few weeks, I've been thinking very strongly as to who we are and asking the question, why are so many people so naive in terms of who they are and where they come from? We have become a diverse culture, one which is blended somewhat. There was certainly slavery. And as I have mentioned before, I lectured first-year degree on African civilization from 1000 to the present, and also West Indian history, that is slavery, 1400 to 1493. This was in depth. However, I don't even think that racism was so bad as it was in England in the 1950s and 1970s. Even today, go into the English prisons, and the majority of the inmates are black. The American prison is no different. And we have to ask the question, why? In St. Lucia, you have a prime minister calling people, ex-prime minister calling people mendicants, jackasses, barking dogs, that even bray. He was free to make a statement of Kenny, on Kenny, thinking of him being the massa. Or was it his family he was talking about? Yet, many St. Lucians from the United Records of the Poor seems oblivious to this statement. Yet, when Calix George Sr. made his remark about house slaves, everyone wants to blame the Prime Minister for not admonishing him. Yet when an individual made mention of that we prefer the Kule Wayayai than black, we did not admonish him. Yet he said that in the presence of the leaders of the opposition's father. It seems strange that he did not stop him to say that is undeserving or unnecessary, and that we are all St. Lucians because of our diverse cultures. Some even said that they preferred Hilaire's skin to Philip because he was light-skinned. Majibetis. Well, putting all that aside, I believe that our next Prime Minister, in my view, when Philip decides enough is enough, it will be another dark-colored person, a well-spoken one called Alva Baptiste. That should be the next leader of the Labour Party, in my view. I've mentioned this before. And we must have pride in those who deserve to lead us. Sir Calix George Sr. served St. Lucia in a manner that many have not done. I want to point that out, that he was a prefect and a lecturer at St. Mary's College. He taught me and did give me a few detentions, yes. In his service to the country, he dismantled the then monopoly of the cable and wireless, which was greatly needed then because of the amount of profits they were making. He was also instrumental in putting things in place for Wasco to have become a modern-day water company with some help being given by the World Bank. Mr. Finnisay, who took over as Minister of Infrastructure, can attest to that. However, the incoming government discarded all that and simply cancelled it. He had all that he had put in place. Sir Calix George also served us as Minister of Agriculture. Some may not remember that, and did an excellent job. I read somewhere that someone mentioned that in speaking the gentleman should have used more sensitive words. I say poppycock to that. How could that be done? And what now aggrieves me is that all one can get from those opposing in the United Records of the Poor are mere insults that basically showed them for the jackasses that they are. I have no intention of mincing my words, I can tell you this, because truth is the truth, and not what you want it to be. Somewhere I read that in a place for literature which was written by Mahatma Gandhi, when he wrote that many people, especially ignorant people, want to punish you for speaking the truth, for being correct, for being you. Never apologize for being correct or for being years ahead of your time. If you're right and you know it, speak your mind. Speak your mind, even if you are a minority of one. The truth is still the truth. I know that Sir Calix George Sr. can defend himself to be honest. I saw the same at one time in the United Records of the Poor in the form of a slave master, what one would term modern day slave master. And the house slaves would be the United Records of the Poor. What amazes me is that they condemn the comments accusing the ruling St. Lucia Labour Party Prime Minister of vile racism and bigotry. They asked Philip to condemn the racist remarks from a man who said that he's a senior Labour Party member. Philip made it clear that it was Calix George's opinion. And therefore, why are we sensitive when historical facts are said? Those are historical facts. And Philip was not even in the country when the man said what he said. Someone had the audacity to make the comment to say that the Prime Minister is good at obfuscation, which in layman's language is that, in other words, he makes something confusing. What? Truly, I was lost for words because I did not realize that we can pluck things out of thin air to make statements that have no relevance in what is being discussed or thrown into thin air. It's at this juncture I'll take my next break and I'll be back. I'm warming up. Welcome back to Moving Forward. I take this opportunity to go back to a radio interview days before the last election, and I'm making it my duty to remind all St. Lucians who support the Labour unity government that they must take everything that the United Records of the Poor say with a pinch of salt, because they just spread propaganda, misinformation, and disinformation. I turn back the clock when their now deputy leader on a radio program highlighted the size of that motorcade which we spoke about, which in essence was the biggest motorcade he had seen in his life. He even shed a tear on that. What he highlighted in that interview to me is that when he said quite categorically that the size of the motorcade was like a sea of yellow, that's all right, and his music system, and it was the biggest, the largest he had seen, and that he was simply lost for words. Then I remember that same minister said to the opposition then that you are crying? Well, you have a lot of crying to do. I wanted to meet him after the election and to simply ask him, now who is crying or doing the crying? After 2 years and 8 months, your party is still crying. And every day it is louder because they just cannot believe that you lied to them when you gave the impression that the election was in the bag and that it was almost a whitewash. Yes, I use white. They just cannot stop crying now. In fact, they are now simply yelling for the good Lord to ease their pain and burden and sorrow in being in the wilderness for the many years to come. And that it will certainly be for a long, long time. Ladies and gentlemen, comrades, I wish that you had all heard that program. It still exists. And to hear how 3 of those involved in the program were simply laughing at the then opposition, and were the laugh one day they're laughing at themselves for simply being jackasses now and mendicants or barking dogs. I did not say it. Your leader said it. Yet some of you have the guts to attack Sir Calix George for making statements that are a matter of fact. He's without a doubt an expert in that field. Therefore, when we talk about racism, I can attest to what it is by living it in England and lecturing in the subject at university level. I just want to remind all those who are union members and those at the higher echelon of the trade union establishment what took place in 1933 when the British sent their man of wars, as we then called them, with their troops and place a curfew till 6 in the country because they feared disturbances, as people were intent on having trade unions in St. Lucia. This was the colonials who had a conscience. When I hear these jackasses speak today, I have come to the realization that their leader saw them as those jackasses. And I agree with him wholeheartedly. However, I acknowledge that he was without a doubt the leader of those jackasses. Now, on another note, it is a pleasure and joy to hear that the Prime Minister now intends to use CIP monies to build houses in St. Lucia. That is wonderful news. Although I will be coming to the close, but before I ever come close to closing, I want to remind all St. Lucians that on the 20th of May 2024, Taiwan's participates in the inauguration of the new president. At this juncture, China is doing everything in its way to cause alarm and despondency to Taiwan. They seem unable to understand that Taiwan is an independent country. I want to make them and the rest of the world understand that. And I'm saying this is an authoritative voice that if they thought that Tsai was a nationalist, Tsai Ing-wen that is, now they will have someone who is more nationalistic and more in tune with Taiwan being a free, independent country, and will work to make sure that this comes to fruition. Tsai was a damn good president, the president right now, because she virtually observed the status quo, whereas Lai is different, L-A-I. I'm not saying that the new president will not, but his closeness to the United States and that of the vice president will be more obvious than ever before. And I'm without a doubt will support that move. China cannot continue its obstinacy in the manner in which she does. And the rest of the world has now to say to China, enough is enough. China at present have a lot on their plate to be thinking of unsettling the independent country we call Taiwan. I said to them to go and try to repair the majority of the dams that are now a serious problem and danger to the majority of their population. But not only that, apart from the floods, It is the damage that is being done to the agricultural areas of their country, more so in the countryside. What we will soon see is that the poor will get poorer because those in Beijing don't really care as long as their little world is not unturned. The alleged widespread corruption that is clear for all to see, and a justice system that fits the oligarch and messianic leader who was to oust Chairman Mao as the present-day savior of China. That is all this present leader of China is interested in. But what he fails to realize is that his popularity is simply waning. Before closing, I want to say to the Prime Minister, that is of our country, that your reputation is growing by leaps and bounds in the big wide world. In that many are now seeing St. Lucia, a small island state, as one to invest in because of the leadership that you have provided. And because the rest of the world can now treat a St. Lucian leader once again with pride and honor. This is without a doubt tremendous. The redevelopment of Port Castries by SLASPA and the Trans Global Ports Holding, GBH, and the concession agreement is beneficial by $135 million. That will go into the local economy. They are one of the largest independent cruise port operators in the world. So the Castries Port and Soufrière will benefit from their expertise tremendously. This is a milestone for the small island we call St. Lucia. And all this is happening under the Prime Ministership of Philip J. Pierre. What is truly heartwarming is that berthing facilities will be expanded to take Oasis class, which accommodate 6,000 passengers. This is substantial in terms of the cruise ship passengers that will be landing on our shores. They will certainly spend more money and thereby give the country a boost. The pluses to that will surely give the vendors at the arcade a major lift because money will be spent to modify the arcade. Not only that, we will see Banan turning into a new fishing village and thereby become an area of importance for the country and the industry. There is no doubt that local providers like taxi drivers will reap the full benefits of Port Castries and Soufrière waterfront. When the infrastructure works ends and is due to begin soon, we will see movement. This project will transform Castries Port to be one of the best in the Caribbean. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, there is no doubt in my mind that many St. Lucians will benefit from that project. And that's only one project. So I want to say to a particular individual, Edward, to put that in your pipe once again and smoke it. That is, if you can. What amazes me is that the opposition is trying their best to find some fault or weakness in the budget, and they just cannot find anything to zero on. So much so, what they have to say is pure poppycock or crap and full of hot air that they themselves do not seem to understand. A particular lady from Dennery North, not too long ago, tried to dissect the budget, and in trying to look for those weaknesses, she failed miserably because they had not come across a budget that was so concise and precise in their lives. Somewhere I've read about willful corruption in politics. I wonder, can this be true? Especially what is now taking place? The United Records of the Poor are desperately now actively trying to come up with creative disinformation, misinformation, and are only interested in lies and dishonesty. On one program, an individual said that in the early hours of the morning, he saw 3 people get into a small plane, but don't know where they were going. If that did happen, what is the problem? They may be going to Ewanora and Beaufort. But here is the twist. That individual conducting the radio program said quite categorically that when you are talking about corruption, lies, and that is the Labour Party, that they can never be trusted. Boulder dash to that nonsense. This simply made me laugh because they are suffering from the shock of July 2021 and realize that they can never reverse that level of beating for a long time to come. They need to go and hibernate and ask the Almighty for forgiveness. That would be much better for them to do. And I'll take my next break now. Welcome back to Moving Forward. And I just want to go back to say, when we think of that the largest independent cruise port operators in the world are coming here, it is really amazing. So I'm here tonight to defend the interests of the people of St. Lucia. Because to have achieved that tough negotiations had taken place, and that will benefit the people of St. Lucia. Least but not last, I listen intently to the Prime Minister in terms of what has been taking place with the CDB fiasco, in terms of the leadership led by Mr. Leon, the St. Lucian. And I do believe that he was the only one at the time who at first then saw the negativity that prevailed in the affair. However, he was the only vote for. Now, without a doubt, the Almighty works in mysterious ways. And it is great to see that the Prime Minister of St. Vincent has now made it clear that the whole episode was unnecessary, undesirable, especially where it deals with the reputation of the Eastern Caribbean individual, more so to St. Lucians, who had a pride in what he had achieved. Bravo, Prime Minister. I hope that he returns and apologies are made or given all round. And then he should, in my view, sue for a substantial amount because of the damage that could have been done to his reputation. When looking at this issue, I must make it clear that some of this nonsense is happening even here when certain people are being promoted above others in the public service that are undeserving. This cannot continue to happen and must end, in my view, forthwith. A person cannot be doing a job at a higher acting position only to find someone else is being promoted above them for one reason or the other. That cannot be right. That cannot be fair, regardless which party is in power. So before I end tonight, I want to congratulate Judge Mario Michel, who is now promoted to acting Chief Justice of the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court. His career began in 2009, that's in the courts. He's the third St. Lucian to hold the post. Following in his footsteps, it was Sir Alan Lewis and Vincent Flosack. I send my personal congratulations to the acting Chief Justice because during his days as a minister of education. I remember that these were the days when we used to play bridge 2 days in the week. It was an enjoyable time, and the comrade was a player of the highest standards. Well, sir, I do hope that you will be a damn good Chief Justice one day, because you are a determined and fair individual, a no-nonsense person. I want to say also to Virginia Albert Poyot, well done in the effort that you are making as the parliamentary representative of Babonneau in helping the farmers because of the challenges that they are facing by having a serious problem with water due to the dry periods we have had. Therefore, you have initiated a program of distributing fuel vouchers program to aid the farmers in order for them to get water. They have to rely on water pumps to extract the water, the river water that is, for farming. The voucher, it is hoped, will give farmers a lift and a little bit of relief. I should say to you, well done, Minister, for that thought. Do hope that the farmers will appreciate the humble gesture that has been made to them. As always, in closing, I want to once again say that this program is about truth and nothing but the truth. Therefore, I've tried to be honest. And as I've always said, to be honest is to confront the truth. However unpleasant and inconvenient the truth may be, I would like to point that out to those reprobates and unintelligent reprobates, so to speak, who try to undermine the government and even me in the truth that I bring to the country as a whole. I believe that we must expose and face the truth if we are to achieve a better quality of life for all St. Lucians, more so for our children and their children to come. Ladies and gentlemen, I therefore say to you once again, to go in peace and tranquility. However, you must never forget that you were born black and should be proud of that. Keep saying those words, that I'm black and I'm proud of that. So, tonight, go in peace to serve the One Most High. I therefore bid you good night and a good night. Go in peace, brothers and sisters, to serve the One Most High. Goodbye and good night.